Okay, this movie is big, so let's get straight into it. There is a lot to talk about. Avengers Infinity War. So this is the third Avengers Infinity War, but it's the sequel to Black Panther, the sequel to Captain America Civil War, the sequel to Doctor Strange, the sequel to Thor. This is the culmination of 10 years of Marvel movies coming together for this one big movie. It's the first half of 2 movies. Let's get into it. I'm going to talk about the facts, the positives, the negatives. I'm going to wrap it up with the scores at the end. And if you're a parent and you want to find out if your children should see this, stick around to the end and you can find out what to look out for if you are a parent. So I can't give away too much of the plot. I'm not going to give away any spoilers. I'm just going to talk vaguely about this because I know a lot of people haven't seen it and I know that you are going to want to see it fresh with fresh eyes. So I'm not going to spoil anything for you. I'm just going to talk about it as vaguely as I can. So Avengers Infinity War, like I said, is the culmination of 10 years of Marvel movies. All the characters in the Marvel movie are coming back here. Let's see if we can go through some of the actors. It stars Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel. It also stars Anthony Mackie. Thanos is obviously played by Josh Brolin. It also stars Paul Bettany, Elizabeth Olsen. It stars Tom Hiddleston. You have got many, many more. I can keep rattling off as many as I can. I think from my last count, I can do about 35 actors in this movie. This movie is huge. Now, obviously, you know from the trailer that Thanos has been collecting the Infinity Stones. There are 6 stones out there in the world. We know where 5 of them are. We don't know where the 6th one is. It's Thanos' plan to grab the 6 stones, click his fingers, and half of life in the universe is vanished, and therefore he has balance in the universe. Obviously, the Avengers catch wind of this, and it's their job to stop Thanos. I feel like that's all I can say about this movie. This movie, once you see it, you feel like you're in a club where you can't talk about anything in this movie. There is so much that happens. There are so many things that happen to characters. There's so many twists. There's so many turns. There are so many things where you'll have to go back and re-watch things to figure out what actually happened. But this movie is pretty good. This movie is awesome. All these characters together on the screen, going from scene to scene, watching them interact with each other, seeing some of them meet up for the first time. When you realize that some don't even know others exist, that's always pretty exciting when they meet. There's a lot of people in this movie, so I'm just going to quickly go through the positives, quickly go through the negatives, and see how we go. So the positives, as I said before, this movie stars a lot of characters. Now, trying to put all these characters into one movie feels like it would be a massive challenge, and the directors of this movie, the Russo brothers, I think pulled this off. There is a lot of moving parts here. There's a lot of scenes, a lot of areas that these characters go to. They go to different countries, different continents, different galaxies, different dimensions. This movie feels like a Rubik's Cube where they're picking out scenes and they're putting it together. I feel like the directors did it really well. There was no scenes that were confusing. There was no parts where I thought, how does that tie in with? Everything seemed to fall into place nicely. Character relationships, they're all there. Every character that has had a previous relationship in a Marvel movie, the relationship is there. Sometimes it's just a look in the eye, sometimes it's just one sentence, sometimes it's an ongoing theme throughout the movie, but I was pretty impressed. I really wanted to see how different Marvel movies react when they see each other for the first time in a long time, or for the first time ever, and I think that the directors did a beautiful job matching that up and ticking the boxes that everyone wanted to see. Every superhero movie, there seems to be a lot of disposable bad guys that just come at the heroes and they can just knock them off one by one. Obviously, this happens again. You know that from the trailer. This movie felt different. This movie, it felt like the bad guys are just coming at them in full force, and you can see people struggling. It felt like a real fight scene rather than a choreographed fight scene. Going back to all the Rubik's Cube scenes that I was talking about, where different characters are in different settings, I also felt like that every character in the Marvel movie got their time to shine. I can't imagine really anyone walking out saying my favorite Marvel character wasn't represented too well. I felt like every single character in the Marvel universe that's in this movie had their time to shine at least 1 or 2 times throughout the movie. Okay, let's talk about the negatives real quickly. One of the negatives for me, and I really can't say it's too much of a negative because it just has to happen, is when you have characters meeting each other, it happens a lot. There are so many relationships in this movie, and a story has to be told. So when 2 characters or 2 groups of characters meet, there's a formula to it. It's usually a quick greeting, a quick plot point, and then a fight scene. And that's just how the movie rolls. Each time there seems to be that formula. And I can't imagine it being any different, because if you spend any more time on relationships or any more time on plot points, this movie would be a 6-hour movie. The only other negative for me is the runtime. Now, this is a long movie, and I'm not upset that it's a long movie. I'm upset that it feels like it's a short movie. I could sit there and watch this movie for 6 hours. In my heart, I just hope there's some other director's cut out there where it fills in a lot of the gaps between scenes and it just draws out those scenes as well. Every time you go to a new scene, it felt like a movie on its own. There was no scenes that were boring, so when you're in there and it switches and goes to the next scene, you kind of have this battle in your mind where you want to stay with that scene, but you're ready to catch up with that scene. So I'm sure there's going to be fans out there in the next couple of years that are going to stitch different scenes together so you have like a mini movie with those characters and a mini movie with these characters and then put it into that order, because that would be interesting to see as well. Alright, let's give some scores out. So for me, the storyline, there is a pretty strong story there. The villain is a strong villain. He seems believable. You seem to empathize with him a little bit or sympathize with him a little bit. For me, it's about an 8 out of 10. There is some extra points there because there is a lot of fighting that has to happen. There's a lot of relationships that have to be talked about. So the storyline kind of gets a backseat sometimes. But for me, the storyline's an 8 out of 10. So the acting is fantastic. Somehow the writers were able to capture 35 different personalities. Spider-Man is Spider-Man. Thor is interesting because the last 3 Thor movies, he's had 2 different personalities. So it's interesting to see which personality Thor has in this movie. I quite like it. Guardians of the Galaxy have their humor. They have their soundtrack, which is fantastic. Everyone has their unique take as an actor. So for me, the acting, honestly, is a 10 out of 10. The visual effects. Now, I saw a TV spot that had some of the Black Order fighting some of the Avengers, and that worried me a little bit because it kind of looked a little bit fake when these characters were fighting. But to be honest, when I saw the real scene in the movie, either they had fixed it in post-production or there was just so much going on that I didn't even notice. So whether the scenes were just super busy or I was thinking about what was happening before or what's happening next or what's happening in the scene, I did not think about computer-generated imagery at all in this movie. Everything seemed real. It felt like I was there. Like I said, there's different countries, different continents, different dimensions, different galaxies. I didn't question at all saying that looks green screen, that looks fake. I was sucked into the moment. So whether that's just good storytelling or good CGI, the visual effects for me are 10 out of 10. And my last category, is it worth 10 years of movie making? Did this live up to the hype of 10 years of movie making? This one's a tricky one because this is the 3rd out of 4 Avengers movie. There's another Avengers movie coming next year that's going to wrap up a few things, I'm sure. So this movie, does it wrap up the last 10 years? Does it get the excitement ready for the next movie? Does it get you excited for the next 10 years of Marvel movie? For me, yes. 10 out of 10. This movie, for me, does this job. It wraps up all of those movies. I think there was 18 movies in the Marvel Universe before this movie. There's plenty more to come. This movie couldn't have come at a better time. It is huge. You know some things are coming to an end. You know some new things are starting to pick up. But this movie is a good movie. So have you seen Marvel Avengers Infinity War? Do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree? Did I miss anything obvious? Do you have any questions about the movie? If you do, please leave some comments, have a discussion, let me know what your thoughts are. And as always, have fun watching movies. Alright parents, so your children see this movie. Now this movie isn't too dissimilar from other Marvel movies. Of course there's a fighting in here constantly, hand-to-hand combat, there are lasers, there's machine guns. For me there's not too much gore. Obviously there's blood. I don't think there's blood happening during fight scenes, but I think after the fight scene, when the heroes are walking around, when villains are walking around, they have blood on them, but you don't see anything too graphic. There are some swear words, there are some hand gestures in this movie, nothing too intense. If you're taking young children in there, be prepared to answer a lot of questions about life and death, because this movie is heart-wrenching. There is a lot of scenes for young children who might not understand what's going on, who might have a lot of questions for you. Other than that, if you've seen Black Panther, I think Black Panther was more intense than this movie. I'm putting this on a bit of a level with Doctor Strange, on a bit of a level with Captain America, where it seems to be fun combat, light-hearted combat, not too much gore. Thank you for watching.